अस्सलामुअलैकुम। अब तक की खुसूसी रिपोर्ट के साथ मैं हूँ ताबिंदा गुल। एथनिक मीडिया सर्विस की जानिब से एक कौमी ब्रीफिंग का एहतमाम किया गया, जिसका उन्वान था क्या आबो हवा के बहरानों से निपटने से तवानाई की लागत को बचाया जा सकता है, कम्युनिटीज़ को बढ़ाया जा सकता है। प्रोग्राम के मुकर्रीन में डेविड विडास्की, शेलेंडा बेकर, ईवी बॉमन, जैसी ब्योंडिया, क्रिस्टल कॉर्निलियस और रोजमेरी जॉन्स शामिल थे। ये जानने के लिए कि इस प्रोग्राम में और क्या बात की गई, हम आपको इसकी मुकम्मल ब्रीफिंग पेश करते हैं।
The climate crisis, saving energy costs and lifting up communities. We asked speakers, as always, to speak slowly for our interpreters in Spanish, Mandarin, and Korean. And we asked reporters to enter questions in the chat, which we will address following each speaker as time allows. Our speakers are also encouraged to answer questions throughout the conference in the chat if you're able to. As every week, we will send the video of today's briefing and expanded bios with contact information for each speaker to all participants later today. And we will post that video as well. And with that, we are happy to welcome our first speaker, Mr. David Widowski. David, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Pilar, and thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak with you today and to address you with you and talk about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And thank you, Pilar, for mentioning that we use GGRF for short, because it could be a mouthful to say that repeatedly.
Thank you, David, for that overview. Of course, with such a large program and project, we have to go into a little bit of detail in order to figure it out. But we have a couple of questions that I think are relevant. Sunita, do you want to ask your question? I don't know which one. You have two questions. So which one?
Yes, David, how do you identify the communities that receive funding, the grantees? Are there basic metrics that you look for?
Henrietta Burrows?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks so much. David, you mentioned that this fund was created by the Reduction Act. Was this an act passed by all of Congress? And if there is a change in administration, would the fund still exist? Or could it be completely deleted?
So it was passed by Congress. It was certainly not unanimous, and one can look at the history of the votes on that act, but it was passed by Congress in 2022. We were given a statutory or a legislative deadline to obligate all $27 billion by 2024, September 30th, which is just a couple of weeks away. We managed to start a program from scratch, go through the entire process of a very ambitious solicitation and an extremely extensive evaluation process to identify our grantees, and we finished that a month and a half early. So the funding is that when I say the funding is obligated, it means that we have a legal contract with the grantees for the funding that we've made available through these grants. And so we have a legal, as I said, agreement in partnership with the grantees for the funding that has now been obligated and that they are able to start utilizing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to move to our next speaker, and that is Shalanda Baker, who's going to talk to us a little bit about why this all is necessary. Welcome, Ms. Baker.
Thank you so much, Pilar. Muchas gracias. And it's so great to see everyone here on the call. There's a lot of information to digest. I think it would be useful, before I get into kind of the data points, to talk a little bit about the context for all of this. So by context, I mean the executive orders that unlocked and provided the gateway for equity to be the focal point for the Biden-Harris administration, and then the enormous dollars that have flowed and will continue to flow through the federal government by virtue of Congress's mandates. So I want to talk about that context, and then I want to get into the data that supports the need for an ambitious program such as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about what I see as some of the challenges that communities of color, low-income communities might face, in really making sure that this is the transformative program it was intended to be. So those are the three things I want to talk about, and I look forward to your questions. So in terms of context, on day one of the Biden-Harris administration, the president signed Executive Order 13985. And this was the executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. And I mention this executive order not only because it was the day one order, but because it really required every single federal agency to look at barriers communities face when accessing that federal agency's resources. EPA certainly went through this exercise, as well as every other federal agency. But this really provides the context for being able to deliver, again, on the promises of this ambitious program. So 7 days later, the president signed Executive Order 14008. And this was the landmark climate order, tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad. And within that executive order was the Justice 40 initiative, which some of you may be familiar with, but some of you may not. But the Justice 40 initiative is the president's promise that 40%, or the goal that 40% of the benefits of every single program in the federal government focused on climate and clean energy and a number of other things would go to disadvantaged communities. And so these two executive orders and the Justice 40 initiative are really kind of foundational pillars to what has been happening in the Biden-Harris administration. As you all know, within about 2 years, the Congress authorized over $1 trillion of spending for climate and clean energy. First, in the bipartisan infrastructure law, and second, in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed by the president in August of 2022. So the Inflation Reduction Act is where the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund lives. Okay, so again, a $27 billion program really designed to be equitable in terms of its impact and to be focused on communities that have been overburdened by pollution, underserved by the federal government historically. So I want to talk a little bit about the data points that make a program like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund relevant and needed. So first, and David mentioned on this, great to see you, David. But David began to talk about this a little bit. We know from data that has been collected by the Energy Information Administration, which is a part of the federal government under the Department of Energy, that 1 in 3 Americans experiences energy insecurity. And so this is something that many of us in the energy world talk about, but energy insecurity is making the difficult choice every single month about whether to heat or cool your home or eat. And we see energy insecurity manifested when people are doing dangerous things to heat their homes in the winter, or keeping their homes at unsafe and unhealthy temperatures during the summer and even during the winter. Energy insecurity can lead to things like household fires, can lead to things like death as well. My colleague here at the University of Michigan, Dr. Tony Reams, has done a lot of great work on that. Diana Hernandez at Columbia University has also done a lot of great work on that. But so energy insecurity is very much a direct outgrowth of energy burden. And so energy burden is when over 6% of your household income goes to meet your energy needs. And in the literature, we say you're energy burdened when you're paying more than 6% of overall household income to meet energy needs. And so why is this important for something like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund? Well, we know that low-income households are inherently energy burdened, because the way that we structure our energy rates in this country is regressive in nature. So the lower your income, inevitably the more you're paying to meet a standard energy cost in your utility district. We also know, based on the research and the data, that over 52% of African American households is energy insecure. And recall the dangerous things I mentioned about coping with energy insecurity. So over 52%, over half of Black households in America experiences energy insecurity, and around 47% of Latinx households experiences energy insecurity. We also know that there are many Native American households that simply lack. But if those communities are not ready, they haven't been educated in terms of, the information that is out there. They don't have the workforce preparation to even participate in this new workforce that's going to be created through this, and they don't have the business background and skills to participate, then we know this program wouldn't meet all of its goals. And so it's really important to build capacity for folks to participate as workers in this transition, but also as business owners, because this is such a significant wealth creation opportunity, a historic wealth creation opportunity that we have with the clean energy transition, but particularly with the jobs that are going to be created through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and the businesses that are going to be created through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So we have a phenomenal opportunity. I think the research is clear that there are certain communities that continue to be left behind and burdened by the energy system and left behind as we transition. And so this program is very much designed to address some of those issues. And so that's all I'll share for now. And I know we'll open it up for some questions.
Yes, and I do have questions for you. How do you think the fund will even out the disparities in terms of energy insecurity? And is there an example or that you can share with us that you're excited about? In what way? Something that can brings it to reality for us, for reporters.
Yeah, I mean, this may be a good one for David, but the way the program is designed is really focusing on the planning aspect, focusing on those who've received these awards, talking about how their program will impact the communities they hope to serve. I think we'll see in a couple years really how much of a deep impact the programs are making in certain communities. The Department of Energy collects data on energy insecurity every 5 years or so. So the next survey is 2025. I think probably the 2030 survey of household energy consumption will really paint the picture regarding impact. But I know universities like mine are also going to be chomping at the bit to really get a sense for where communities are being impacted in a positive way from these investments like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. But I don't know if there's anything more specific, David, that top of mind that you would want to share. Otherwise, I can continue to answer the questions that are coming through.
I would just mention that first of all, we are doing what we can to work with other organizations, both in the federal government at the state level and with organizations that represent communities and types of communities around the country. We have 35 people managing this $27 billion grant program. So we really depend to a large extent on our grantees, and we're going to hear from some of them very soon about their approaches to outreach, community education, and individual education. We rely on universities like the University of Michigan and Dr. Baker to spread some of this information. There are other federal agencies, Department of Energy, Small Business Administration, Housing and Urban Development, when we start talking about buildings that can make a difference and have outreach systems. We really depend, people say, it takes a community. When we talk about being able to identify, understand, deploy, and being able to utilize the funds that are available, we rely on a large number of partners, stakeholders, and supporters to get the word out. And you're part of that. Everybody on this call who's in ethnic media is such an important element for bringing the story to people where they live, in the language that you speak, in the context of your culture. And we do want to try to support that. And if there's things that we can do to help provide information, answer questions, provide insights, we are more than happy to do that. We see it as such an important part of our mission.
And this is exactly why we're having this meeting, and we hope that we will have more in the future. And we're now going to the ground to talk to some of the organizations and people that are actually helping, that will be helping to implement this fund and these opportunities. Organizations that are already on the ground doing this work, that were granted this money, but before they were granted this money, they were already working out there with communities. So Evie Bowman, she's Director of Community Implementation of Rewiring America. And she's also accompanied with Rosemary Jones from DeSoto, Georgia. She's a resident there, and she's the project manager for Vitalizing DeSoto. Evie, do you want to start giving us a little bit of context, and then we'll watch a little video to explain what's been going on in DeSoto, which is a small town there in Georgia, and then Rosemary is going to talk to us about some of the cases, some of the people that she's been meeting out there, what's been happening on the ground.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you so much for having us. Again, my name is Evie Bauman. I work at the nonprofit Rewiring America, and we're so glad to be with you today. Thank you so much for organizing this session. And just to echo what David said, I'm so glad that we're meeting and that hopefully this is the first of many conversations. Today, I'm going to give a quick introduction of the organization Rewiring America and the Power Forward Communities Coalition that we're a part of. And that coalition is one of the recipients of funds from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Then it will be my pleasure to hand it off to my colleague, Ms. Rose Jones, to share a few of those stories about our work to bring clean, efficient electric appliances to her community of DeSoto, Georgia. And we really hope that those stories that she shares today are ones that are going to be made possible and replicable throughout the country using funds from GGRF. So I'm also going to share my screen. And right now, fossil fuel versions of these machines are often less expensive to install and to operate. But thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, there are a number of tax credits and rebates to make swapping out these appliances in your home more affordable and bring down that upfront cost. So there's been a lot of discussion in the chat about how can we spread the word. At Rewiring America, we specifically created this website to help you better understand the rebate programs that are currently rolling out state by state over the course of this year and next. Currently, Wisconsin and New York are some of the first states to go live with programs, and more will be coming available over the next year. And you can learn more about those by visiting our website and the savings calculator that we created here. However, even with those tax credits and rebates, making home electrification more affordable and the upfront cost of those machines is still going to be out of reach for many, many households. And that's why we partnered with 5 other nonprofit organizations to form a coalition called Power Forward Communities. And we applied for the National Clean Investment Fund Award through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, because we want to bring financial products to the market to make these kinds of upgrades more accessible to households across all income spectrums. So Power Forward Communities, we are a group of 5 different nonprofits that collectively have deep community connections, financial expertise in affordable housing, and significant federal grant experience. And I know that David touched on this, specifically the 3 different programs within it. So again, we were part of the National Clean Investment Fund, which is really focused on lending products. And we received $2 billion over a 7-year period to bring financing and also to lead market development efforts to make electrification the inevitable choice and more accessible for everybody. So we're really focused on making it easier for you to install a heat pump, which is a device that does both heating and cooling in your home, and other electric appliances that are a key part of our clean energy transition. And our coalition is actively working with implementation partners right now in our initial key launch markets to finalize these plans and ensure that our work delivers immediate results. And at Rewiring specifically, we've learned a lot about delivering results through what we've been calling our demonstration projects over the past year. So last fall, we launched 5 different projects in communities that are not your usual suspects for climate action and frequently underserved or overlooked. These projects took place in primarily low-income and disadvantaged communities, and we provided at least 1 electrification upgrade at no cost to the participant. We also targeted homes that are likely to see energy bill savings from the upgrade, and we partnered with manufacturers to receive donated appliances from them to make sure that we could reach more homes. And here's a photo of Miss Rose, who you'll hear from momentarily, and later Stacey Abrams, who are boots on the ground in Georgia. So these are the communities where we worked, and I just want to note that there are a few key distinctions between these projects and the program that we'll be rolling out with GGRF support. Primarily, we'll be taking advantage of those Inflation Reduction Act rebates for the upgrades in future GGRF communities, and we will be pairing those rebates with a financing offering to households for the remainder of the upfront cost. Whereas in these demonstration projects, we covered the full cost of the upgrade with the goal of raising awareness about these electric appliances and the rebates that are going to become available. So we think that the stories from each of these sites will be powerful examples of what's possible through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And today we really want to highlight our work in DeSoto. So I'm going to share a video now of our work there, where we provided around 75 households with an electric appliance upgrade, and we partnered closely with the utility there, Georgia Power, to take advantage of their energy efficiency incentives. So now I'm going to switch my screen sharing and hopefully successfully share this video. Okay, I'll go full screen. Let me know if you can hear the audio.
When I think this program was a blessing, they came in and redid my air unit, still 100% better, and I'm grateful. My utility bill has actually gone from around $180 down to $98.
Going around and meeting the people and see the look on their face, you know, we install this stuff and it works. So rewarding when you help with somebody else.
Stacy chose us to start this program, and I appreciate that, especially with me when it gets real hot. This really helps me out.
My son's in Dooley County right now, trying to get him out to eat, knowing the whole house be full, you know, I actually be excited that my son come home.
It's a program that prayerfully, you know, it gets more exposure and the attention that it really needs, and it will expand and overflow to different cities. When I think this program was a blessing.
Okay, and with that, Miss Rose, please, I pass the mic to you.
Okay. All right. Words, I just want to be in like a personal testimony today. Words cannot express how we appreciate Stacey Abrams and Rewiring America bringing this to a small town like DeSoto, Georgia, a town where everyone there knows each other. And not only do we know each other, we support each other. A town where you're providing an outstanding opportunity for residents there in the Vitalizing DeSoto project. I want to start by saying the upgrades provided through the Vitalizing DeSoto project will help our residents lower their energy bill, as you just heard, and ensure they have a healthy and comfortable place to live. We started out with a town hall meeting that was conducted with Stacey Abrams and the Rewiring America team. They provided insights and questions about this project. Residents were given the opportunity to sign up, and those unable to attend, they could call the mayor or me. At first, these residents found it hard to believe that all DeSoto residents are eligible to participate in the program at no cost to them. Some asked,
We're having problems with the connection there? Yeah, you told me this could happen. Okay. Hello, hello? Miss Rose? Yeah, we were having problems hearing you. Hello?
Okay. Oh, goodness. So can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go on.
Okay. So many of them thought it was a scam. They thought there would be call foreseen answers, and they just They just found it too hard to believe someone was being this generous. Vitalizing Soda Project launched in October of 2023. We had 7 households signed up, and EXA filled the air, equally for those who were not financially able to repair or replace their broken units. The purpose of this program is clear now, and I know I can express for them to Stacey Abrams and Rewiring America. They want to say thank you for ensuring that the rural communities have received this support that they need to thrive. They are reducing their financial burdens. They are providing no upfront cost to rural families. They're helping them replace broken equipment in their homes. And I'm just proud to be a part of this team. And I can truly say that because of this project, everyone walks away a winner.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Thank you so much for sharing the stories and your experience working with your own community there in DeSoto, Georgia. We're gonna move on in the interest of time to other speakers, but please stay around because you may get questions. And also look at the chat just in case you can answer any questions there. And so next we're gonna hear from Jesse Buendia from the Coalition for Green Capital about how the money from this fund can help communities fund a number of projects. Jesse?
Hi, buenos días. Me llamo Jesse Buendia. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at the Coalition for Green Capital. We are lucky enough to be one of the 3 national financial institution coalitions that received funding from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And I'm very privileged to be on this call with Evie from Rewiring America as my counterpart, and also the brilliant minds at EPA and the federal government who helped shape this program. The Coalition for Green Capital received a $5 billion award to be able to support green bank financial institutions. Many of you may have never heard of a green bank before. A green bank is often a financial institution that was legislated to exist. It could be a public or nonprofit organization with the mission and goal of helping drive down greenhouse gas reductions, which for many of you include a lot of different kinds of gases, so carbon being one of them, the other pollutants being others. But it is what is leading all the challenges that we see across the country with climate change that has a disproportionately negative impact on communities of color, low-income communities, rural and tribal areas. So a huge credit to the people who designed this program for thinking about how, as we solve the climate crisis, how do we put the most impacted communities first in line to receive the benefits. I will say what is very exciting about being a part of a coalition of green banks that have been around for decades doing this work is that a lot of what seems really, really hard to do, which is understanding the science and the math behind what it's going to take to actually outpace the negative effects of climate change, our coalition members are experts. What I think is a huge opportunity is taking that incredible technical expertise, especially in the environmental and also financial space, and applying it to all of the incredible knowledge and experience that communities and community leaders, like the one we just heard from, have around how this actually can work in communities who have been historically disinvested in. And so our goal through these $5 billion is to create a national network of green bank institutions who are going to build together a clean power platform that is going to outpace fossil fuels and bring renewable energy to all communities across the country, and ensure that the benefits, both economic and health benefits, come to the most disadvantaged communities. According to, again, you guys have had so many good questions about who is a disadvantaged community, who qualifies, and there are a lot of different measurements. But I will say many of the communities as ethnic media that you serve are likely to qualify for these benefits. That's why you're so important to the work that we do, because we know that in order to do this work, any kind of hard challenge needs trusted messengers. And that's what your media organizations and opportunities are. So there was a question of who should be involved. You should be involved. You are a very important partner to all of us. I will go ahead and say we have what makes Green Banks also unique historically, besides its very specific mission to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, is that they are really thinking about how this cannot be solved only with the public sector investments. So many of you have heard us say things like billions of dollars, and you're like, I'm used to working with like hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands of dollars. These people are saying billions. I'm going to throw out and scare all of you with the fact that climate change is actually $1 trillion problem. And so our down payment that our federal government is making right now with these $27 billion is to help catalyze investments from the private sector. This is a huge opportunity for you. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you. So I'm obviously happy to share more about this work, but I want you just to be taking away from this that we are very eager to partner as a collection of now financial institutions to be able to serve the needs, again, of the communities that you all serve also.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to the last speaker, and then we can have around the questions. And that is Crystal Cornelius, President and CEO of the OWISTA Corporation. Crystal, welcome. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, no, you're fine. Bonjour, Nina Nishnabe, Kwaimetanakwaju, Shkanagandonji, Mashkude, Vijiki, Kwaitishnakash. I just said and greeted you in my language. Hello, my name is Crystal Cornelius. I'm from the Turtle Mountain Reservation, and it's a pleasure to be here. So a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today and OWISTA's role is being a recipient of the GGRF funds. A little bit about OWISTA. We are a native intermediary CDFI. That acronym is Community Development Financial Institution. And for those that don't know what CDFIs are, there's over 1,200 CDFIs within the United States. And these institutions were created under the Department of Treasury, so they're a literal program under the Department of Treasury, and their intent holistically is to be a building block and a source of safe and affordable capital and technical assistance for those individuals, communities that don't have access to mainstream capital. So for Indian country, which is a broad term, we have 574 federally recognized tribes, 60 state recognized tribes, 30 unrecognized tribes, and great populations of indigenous individuals in Alaska and Hawaii. So when we look particularly at these programs, and quite a bit was allocated to assist tribal communities. A majority of our tribal communities throughout the United States and our populations are in rural communities. Rural communities on a myriad of measures don't have access to capital, clean energy, or the last to be served in many measures. So as we look at the greenhouse gas initiatives, CDFIs are going to be, throughout the United States, and there's a CDFI in every state within the United States, major deployers and partners within this measure. So that's something just to keep note of as, we begin as recipients to roll out programs. Particularly OWISTA, we were awarded a Solar for All program in the amount of $156 million. Our intent with that program is to potentially serve 20,000 residential households throughout tribal nations, and also have a focus, a smaller focus on community solar projects, which in layman's terms really are helping create those energy sources that can be assessed by tribal members, other tribal members. What's really exciting, and each one of our speakers has alluded to, America, as we see right now, this is the biggest allocation of funding towards green energy, and we're not stopping. So this is, and not only because of these federal allocations, but this is somewhere globally we know we all need to go. So as we look at serving our disadvantaged communities, tribal communities, and a lot of our minority communities are going to have the same models, we're not only at looking at projects and energy efficiency, which is incredibly important, and resiliency, but we're also looking at building up that workforce development. And that's incredibly important because we are going to have a huge vacuum of hundreds of thousands of jobs that are needed. If we can help create systematically in conjunction with projects, workforce development, and layer that with the business opportunities, this funding is literally going to change the economic landscape, the energy landscape of our communities, period. And especially our rural communities and minority focused communities. So within the program, I think it's also important to note, we have a lot of our awardees on here today. We're all also working collectively together to be able to leverage this funding to the best of our abilities. There's going to be a lot of training programs that are laid out in a myriad of measures. How can we all correlate and be able individually to come back and say, all right, I've got to change this curriculum in a cultural manner, which makes it more receptive to my community. So you're going to be seeing also a lot of correlation and coordination that needs to exist between these programs. The Solar for All program that AWISTA is implementing is a 5-year program. We'll formally be rolling out. We're in the pre-planning period as we speak now. We're looking at April. Within April of next year. So we've got a pretty quick timeline. What you'll find as well, a lot of communities are wondering, am I eligible? How do I even see what I need? And that's what we're going to find quite a bit. We're going to have communities that now have opportunities for the first time, but solar is going to look different, as an example, in Alaska than it would in the Southwest. So we're going to also be looking at a lot of energy assessments and upgrades in this measure. On another note, AWISTA, we are also part of a larger coalition who was awarded the CCIA funding, again, the Clean Community Investment Accelerator, and we are a member of a coalition that is named the Justice Climate Fund. The Justice Climate Fund, we are an 11-member coalition that essentially represents the Black and Brown lenders in the nation, over 1,600 Black and Brown lenders in marginalized communities. So with our CCIA funding, Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, specifically for AWISTA and our tribal nations, we also have the opportunity to assist with workforce development, with capacity building grants for organizations or direct projects as well. So in terms of what we're looking at in the landscape for rural communities, for tribal communities, within the Solar for All program, there are about 6 awardees that are particularly looking at tribal communities. And again, within the other context, tribal communities are in the hindsight to be served within the respective programs. I could speak a lot more on that in the respective time or questions. I'm sure that we'll be providing our information to our list of applicants. We would welcome any questions. We would welcome any partnerships. And I think it may be a good idea too, maybe for a follow-up, and we can provide information to, kind of keep updated. I know that as a recipient, we're sending out information on, what we know is coming or things to be apprised of. So I thank you so much for your time. David, thank you for your time. EPA, again, this was an amazing initiative that's really going to change the trajectory of our economy, our resiliency, and hope, we're one step further to saving our planet. We only got one and they're not making any more. So good initiative. And thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, Crystal. Frank Blanquette, do you want to ask your question or any question? Frank?
Hi, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself. Crystal, what advice do you have for tribal communities across the country that don't have someone like Peggy Flanagan or Tim Waltz that actively work on communication between government and tribal communities? What kind of advice would you have for them as they try to take advantage of such programs, but they might not have a trusted face to deal with as a to offer advocacy for them or information for them for these programs?
That's a great question. And I would say as all of the awardees are vamping up, we all have community engagement plans. So you're going to be finding, all tribes, all communities respectively in our areas are going to be directly reached out to with, initial information of this is what the program looks like. Here's webinars. Here is contacts that you can speak to. OWISTA, we're also creating a website which will be launched, and it will have trusted vendors that you can work with. It will have, respective projects, contacts that tribes will have availability to really assess what does this look like for my community. So we're aiming on reaching every tribal community in the nation, which is, that's a big step, but that's definitely going to be available, if that's helpful, Frank. Thank you for the question.
There were many questions in the chat. Many of them have been answered. Gia was asking about Asian communities. Gia, do you wanna ask your question, and then we can just open it up for anyone in the panel to answer. Gia Young. Sorry if I butchered your name. What is the main takeaway for us reporters? What do you want us to communicate to people?
That Evie, I think you covered it really well. And I want to say to you that we have our media available and have been making presentations. We have a few articles that have been printed. Representative Bowles, he was in the meeting, he was there with us, and he took away some of the testimonies, personal testimonies from some of the residents. So the media is a part of ours, and I have 2 newspapers where they've been published, giving them all of the information needed to make their home more comfortable and free of fossil fuel and reduce their bill, because that's what it's all about, reducing the bill, so I can use that money in a more needed area.
Okay, thank you so much. Jessica and Crystal.
I think my takeaway for ethnic media today is that this is not a short-term story, it's a long-term story. This is probably one of the only programs that is designed to exist beyond the end of the grant term, in that it's creating self-sustaining financial institutions who are going to provide this kind of green lending opportunity to businesses and communities everywhere in perpetuity. So it's not a grant program, it's a loan program. And so the loans will continue to recycle, so we can offer more loans, so we can continue, again, helping provide capital beyond 7 years.
Thank you, Crystal.
I think everyone has said something so brilliantly. So ditto to all of that. I guess a takeaway just generally is particularly rural communities have an opportunity to be the lead in energy development within workforce development, and really leading the charge in the transition to green America. So I'm excited about that.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for your patience. We went way over time this week, but we thought this was worth it. There were so many great presentations that we really wanted to go the distance. And we will have more discussions about this. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you want the contact information for the speakers, et cetera, et cetera. You'll get a video, and of course, we'll publish also an article in our website, et cetera. Thank you, all of you, for being available, so generous with your time, and have a good weekend.
अब तक के लिए इतना ही। देखते रहिए देसी टीवी USA, DTVNN और हमारा OTT प्लेटफॉर्म DTV Flex, जहां आप 3000 से ज़्यादा चैनल्स देख सकते हैं। सो स्टे ट्यून एंड स्टे विद अस।